Hello and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nawreen. In today's bulletin, we will present top and trending news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Biden administration sending 1,500 more soldiers to Mexico border. Muslim mayor blocked from White House Eid celebration. Stars shine at Met Gala in honor of designer Karl Lagerfeld. US to lift most federal COVID-19 vaccine mandates next week. Three killed in Southern California small plane crash. Woman testifies that she too was sexually attacked by Trump. Seven bodies, including two believed to be missing teens, found in Oklahoma, according to sheriff. Blinding US dust storm leads to fatal collisions in Illinois. Almost half of midterm voters cast ballots early or by mail. UN summit in Qatar on Afghanistan ends, another planned. Myanmar leader welcomes foreign minister of key ally China. Ugandan minister shot and killed by bodyguard. Fourteen people killed in rain-related incidents across Pakistan. Canada's folk singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot dies aged 84. Novak Djokovic can play at US Open as vaccine mandate to end. And PSG suspends Messi for unapproved trip to Saudi Arabia. You were listening to headlines, now news in detail. The administration of US President Joe Biden is sending 1,500 additional soldiers to the United States border with Mexico as the country prepares for the lifting of contentious pandemic-era restrictions later this month. In a statement on Tuesday, the Pentagon said it had approved a request from the Department of Homeland Security to send the added military personnel to the border for 90 days. The soldiers will perform non-law enforcement duties such as data entry and warehouse support, DHS said in an earlier statement amid an anticipated increase in migration at the southwest US border. This support will free up DHS law enforcement personnel to perform their critical law enforcement missions, the department said. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday afternoon, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre also confirmed that the additional Department of Defense personnel would perform administrative tasks at the frontier. The United States Secret Service blocked a Muslim mayor from attending a White House celebration with President Joe Biden to belatedly mark the end of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Shortly before he was to arrive at the White House for the Eid al-Fitr celebration on Monday, Mayor Mohammad Khairullah said he received a call from the White House stating he had not been cleared for entry by the Secret Service and could not attend the celebration, where Biden delivered remarks to hundreds of guests. He said the White House official did not explain why the Secret Service had blocked his entry. Khairullah informed the New Jersey chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations after he was told he would not be allowed to attend the event. The group has called on the Biden administration to seize the FBI's dissemination of information from what is known as a terrorist screening dataset that includes hundreds of thousands of individuals. The group informed Khairullah that a person with his name and birth date was in a dataset that its attorneys had obtained in 2019. Khairullah was an outspoken critic of former President Donald Trump's travel ban that limited entry to the US of citizens from several predominantly Muslim countries. He also has traveled to Bangladesh and Syria to do humanitarian work with the Syrian American Medical Society and the Watan Foundation. Top stars from the worlds of fashion, film, politics, and sport have celebrated the late king of couture, Karl Lagerfeld, at the annual Met Gala. Among the guests was actor Jared Leto, who dressed up for the red carpet as Lagerfeld's cat, Chopin. The pampered cat had sent her regrets earlier in the day for not attending, with the fellow's Instagram account giving thanks for the tribute. Oscar winners Nicole Kidman and Michelle Yeoh, singers Cardi B and Bad Bunny, basketball superstar Brittany Griner, and models Gisele Bündchen and Kate Moss were also among the hundreds invited to the event on Monday night at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. Griner, twice an Olympic champion, has pledged to use her prominence after being freed in a high-profile prisoner exchange after nearly 10 months of detention in Russia to campaign for the release of other Americans detained abroad. The event's guest list is decided by Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour, who took over the charity gala in the 1990s and transformed it into one of the fashion industry's biggest extravaganzas. The event is always held on the first Monday of May, and this year celebrates German-born Lagerfeld, coinciding with the opening of a Costume Institute exhibition dedicated to his life and work. Lagerfeld, who died in 2019, created clothes for Chanel, Fendi, and Chloe, as well as for his eponymous label. And most of the stars wore his vintage designs or outfits that reflected his aesthetic. Black and white were the dominant colors, and many were draped in pearls. Rihanna was the last to arrive, and with her partner A$AP Rocky, had the red carpet to herself. The Biden administration will end most of the last remaining federal COVID-19 vaccine requirements next week when the national public health emergency for the coronavirus ends, the White House said Monday. Vaccine requirements for federal workers and federal contractors, as well as foreign air travelers to the U.S., will end May 11. The government is also beginning the process of lifting shot requirements for Head Start educators, healthcare workers, and non-citizens at U.S. land borders. The requirements are among the last vestiges of some of the more coercive measures taken by the federal government to promote vaccination as the deadly virus raged, and their end marks the latest display of how President Joe Biden's administration is moving to treat COVID-19 as a routine endemic illness. Deeply polarizing at the time and the subject of numerous legal challenges, many of which were successful, the vaccination requirements were imposed by Biden in successive waves in late 2022 as the nation's vaccination rate plateaued even amid the emergence of new, more transmissible variants of COVID-19. A single-engine plane crashed near a California mountain airport on Monday, killing all 3 people aboard, authorities said. The Beechcraft A-36 went down about 2 p.m. near Big Bear City Airport, according to the Federal Aviation Administration. The plane struck a vacant lot and there was no fire, fire officials said. The victims weren't immediately identified. The cause of the crash was under investigation. Weather reports said it was partly cloudy at the time of the crash. Big Bear Airport is in the San Bernardino Mountains near Big Bear Lake, a popular resort area about a 2 hours drive east of Los Angeles. It was the second deadly small plane crash in 3 days in Southern California. On Saturday, one person was killed when a single-engine plane slammed into a grassy hillside above homes in a Los Angeles neighborhood amid dense fog, authorities said. A woman who says Donald Trump silently molested her on an airliner in the late 1970s testified Tuesday in support of the writer who alleges that a flirtatious 1996 encounter with the future president ended in a violent sexual attack. Jessica Leeds, who is 81 years old, of Asheville, North Carolina, said Trump accosted her with what seemed like 40 zillion hands. She joined other witnesses who supported the testimony of E. Jean Carroll, a longtime advice columnist who publicly aired her claims against Trump in 2019 when she published a memoir. Trump has repeatedly denied the claims, saying Carroll lied to sell books and disparage him. The witnesses were meant to support Carroll's testimony over 3 days, ending Monday, that Trump raped her in the dressing room of a luxury department store in Midtown Manhattan. Lisa Bernberg, a longtime friend of Carroll, testified that an emotional and hyperventilating Carroll telephoned her minutes after her encounter with Trump to report what occurred. She said she told Carroll that Carroll had been raped and urged her to go to the police, but Carroll refused, leading them to argue before Bernberg agreed never to speak of it again. A woman said Tuesday that her daughter and 3 teenage grandchildren were among the 7 people found shot to death at a rural Oklahoma property during a search for 2 missing teens and a convicted sex offender. Okmulgee County Sheriff Eddie Rice said Monday that the 7 bodies found near the town of Henrietta were believed to include those of Ivy Webster and Brittany Brewer, along with Jesse McFadden, the felon with whom authorities said the teens had been troubling. But Rice said the state medical examiner would have to confirm the victims' identities. "We are no longer looking," Rice said Monday morning, adding, "Our hearts go out to the families and friends, schoolmates, and everyone else." Janet Mayo, who is 59 years old, of Westville, Oklahoma, said the sheriff's office notified her late Monday that the other 4 victims were her daughter, Holly Gaze, and her grandchildren, Riley Elizabeth Allen, Michael James Mayo, and Tiffany Doe Gaze. Mayo said Tiffany Gaze was close friends with Webster and Brewer, who were spending the weekend with the family. While Rice declined to provide details of how they died, Mayo said the sheriff's office told her that her daughter and grandchildren were all found shot to death on the property. Mayo said she and her family did not know about McFadden's criminal history until a couple of months ago. Gusting winds in the Midwestern United States have kicked up a fatal dust storm, reducing visibility to zero and triggering a major vehicle pileup that killed at least 6 people on an Illinois highway. More than 30 additional motorists from ages 2 to 80 were hurt in the crash as a result of Monday's storm, according to Illinois State Police. Their injuries ranged from minor to life-threatening. State Police reported as many as 60 cars and nearly 30 commercial vehicles slammed into one another as strong winds whipped across the flat farmland near the town of Farmersville, about 40 kilometers south of the state capital of Springfield. 2 semi-trucks caught fire, adding to the haze that clouded the I-55 highway, shutting down traffic in both the north and south directions. All the crashes occurred within a 3-kilometer stretch of road from milepost 76 to milepost 78. Almost half of all voters in the 2022 midterm elections cast their ballots before Election Day, either by mail or through early voting, with Asian and Hispanic voters leading the way, according to new data the U.S. Census Bureau released Tuesday. The heavy use of both early voting and voting by mail occurred even as Republican-led states have tightened rules on both voting methods over the last 2 years, and it marked a steep rise from the two previous midterm elections in 2018 and 2014. Only the 2020 presidential election, during the worst part of the COVID-19 pandemic, had a greater share of US voters who cast ballots early or by mail. More than two-thirds of voters did so. In the 2022 midterm elections, two-thirds of Asian voters and almost three-fifths of Hispanic voters cast ballots by mail or at early voting sites, while less than half of white and black voters did so, according to Census Bureau survey data. Unusual dynamics drove midterm turnout last year, including the US Supreme Court decision earlier in the year allowing states to ban abortion, and the reputation of deniers of the 2020 election results in political swing states. In fact, 52.2% of people eligible to vote in the US cast their ballots, a midterm mark surpassed in the past 20 years only by the 2018 congressional elections, which had 53.4% turnout. More than 69% of voting-age citizens were registered to vote, the highest rate for a midterm election in 2 decades, according to the survey. Now it's time for global updates. A closed-door summit on Afghanistan ended Tuesday in Qatar without any formal acknowledgement of the Taliban-run government there, though the United Nations chief said they would hold another meeting in the future. Activists had worried the gathering in Doha could see the international community reach a recognition deal with the Taliban, even as Afghan women remain largely barred from society under their restrictive measures. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres attended the summit, which the world body described as an event where nations and organizations were trying to reach unified stances on human rights, governance, counterterrorism, and anti-drug efforts related to Afghanistan. No recognition of the Taliban as a legitimate government had been anticipated to come out of the meeting, though activists in recent days suggested it was a possibility. The Taliban seized Afghanistan in August 2021 as US and NATO troops were in the final weeks of their pullout from the country after 20 years of war. The head of Myanmar's military-controlled government, Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, met Tuesday with the visiting Foreign Minister of China, which has provided key support to his regime since it seized power 2 years ago. Myanmar State Television MRTV said Qin Gang held talks in the capital, Naypyidaw, with Min Aung Hlaing and other top officials and exchanged views on bilateral relations, Myanmar's political situation, and conditions needed for its stability and development. Myanmar is mired in strife because of a political crisis unleashed when the military took power in February 2021, deposing the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. The takeover prompted widespread peaceful protests that security forces suppressed with deadly force, triggering armed resistance throughout the country that the army has been unable to quell. China has strategic geopolitical and economic interest in Myanmar, its southern neighbor, and is one of the few large nations that has maintained good relations with its military government, which is shunned and sanctioned by many Western nations for its takeover and brutal repression of its opponents. China, along with Russia, is a major arms supplier to Myanmar's military. It also is Myanmar's biggest trading partner and has invested billions of dollars in Myanmar's mines, oil and gas pipelines, and other infrastructure. A bodyguard shot and killed a government minister in Uganda early Tuesday in an apparent private dispute, according to the army and local media. The attacker, who has not been publicly identified, then turned the gun on himself, according to state broadcaster UBC and others. The victim, Charles Engola, served in the government of President Yoweri Museveni as the junior minister in charge of labor. He was a retired Army colonel. Army spokesman Brigadier Felix said in a short statement that an unfortunate incident led to the killing of Angola. We shall inform the public the details as we jointly investigate the matter, he said on Twitter. The shooting took place inside Angola's home in a suburb of the Ugandan capital, Kampala. Police detectives are now at the scene. The motive was not immediately clear, but the local press said there had been an apparent dispute over the guards' wages. 8 tourists who went missing over the weekend when their jeep fell into a river in Pakistan-administered Kashmir have been declared dead by rescuers, who could not find any of them despite a massive search, police said Monday, as the Prime Minister ordered authorities to remain alert to handle any situation. The incident happened on Sunday in Neelam Valley, a district in the disputed Himalaya region, which is divided between Pakistan and India but claimed by both in its entirety, a local police official, Khalid Aziz, said. He said initially one tourist was killed and 5 others were injured in the incident, while later police learned that 8 tourists were missing and there was no hope of finding them alive, as the fast-flowing river swept them away. At least 14 people, including 9 tourists who died in Kashmir, have been killed since Saturday when heavy rains started lashing various parts of the country. At least 4 people were killed in various rain-related incidents in the southwestern Balochistan province, while a boy was killed in Karachi, the capital of southern Sindh province. Gordon Lightfoot, the folk singer-songwriter known for If You Could Read My Mind and Sundown, as well as for songs that told tales of Canadian identity, has died. He was 84. His publicist Victoria Lord said the musician died on Monday at a Toronto hospital. His cause of death was not immediately available. Lightfoot was considered one of the most renowned voices to emerge from Toronto's Yorkville Folk Club since in the 1960s. He recorded 20 studio albums and wrote hundreds of songs, including Carefree Highway, Early Morning Rain, and The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. In the 1970s, Lightfoot earned 5 Grammy nominations, 3 platinum records, and 9 gold records for albums and singles. He performed in more than 1,500 concerts and recorded 500 songs. He toured late into his life. Just last month, he cancelled upcoming US and Canadian shows, citing health issues. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 15,314.89. The NYSE Composite is decreased by 221.00 points or 1.42%. Tokyo stock close price is 29,157.1958. The Nikkei 225 index is increased by 34.77 points or 0.12%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,323.2746. The Shanghai index is increased by 37.39 points or 1.14%. Hong Kong stock close price is 19,933.81. The Hang Seng index is increased by 39.24 points or 0.20%. Bombay stock close price is 61,354.71. The Sensex index is increased by 242.27 points or 0.40%. Let's have a look on today's sports stories. Men's tennis world number one Novak Djokovic will be able to compete at the US Open this year after the United States government announced plans to end its COVID-19 vaccination requirements for international travelers on May 11. The White House said on Monday that the requirements will end when the coronavirus public health emergency ends next week. Djokovic, one of the most high-profile athletes not vaccinated against COVID-19, missed the US Open in 2022 due to his vaccine status. The 35-year-old Serb was unable to enter the country this year after unsuccessfully applying to the US government for a special permission to play at the Masters tournaments in Indian Wells and Miami. Djokovic missed last year's Australian Open and was deported from the country due to his vaccine status and has said he would skip Grand Slams rather than have a COVID shot. However, with ease of restrictions by the Australian government later in 2022, the Serb took part in and won the 2023 edition of the tournament in Melbourne to equal Rafael Nadal's record of 22 men's Grand Slam titles. Paris Saint-Germain suspended Lionel Messi for 2 weeks after the World Cup champion took an unauthorized trip to Saudi Arabia, French media reported on Tuesday. The suspension means Messi would miss PSG's next 2 games and comes at a delicate time as the French club hopes to extend the Argentine star's contract beyond this season. El Equipe and RMC Sport both reported the suspension without citing sources. The club did not immediately respond to a request by the Associated Press for comment. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest update. Millennium TV US and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TV's such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV, and also in all European countries and Australia, available with the Sky Network, Worldwide Jago TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.